should for them to discuss. We flew out to Kansas City, that blizzard was supposed to hit, so they canceled our flight, so like we were like, can we go to Austin the night before? So thankfully our agent sent us to Austin. It's always something, it's either getting home, we never wanted to, like, we can't get home, or we can't get out, so.
I just determined I'm not gonna fly until they lift the restriction.
You know what, we had like see-through masks, and not a single flight attendant said anything to us, and
I was at Bryant Park
yeah,
last
it was
night.
weird.
The only person who ever said anything was the little lady at the end. As soon as I turned around and walked away, but underneath the face on it, the rest of the country,
Yeah.
nobody.
All right, it's 7 o'clock.
It tells you how much they care.
Call to order the Board of Education regular meeting, Monday, February 14th. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. If you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on January 10th, 2022, approval of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting on January 26th, 2022, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for January 2022, approval of option students, approval of the resignations of Carol Ullman, Tracy Post, Donna Hadley, Megan Robeson, Carrie Laughlin, Brenda Broughton, London Loudon, Rupek, Anna Petska, and Pamela Barnes.
Second.
We have a second? Thanks, Aaron. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Jason, do you have a budget update?
I do. So for a treasurer's report, the expenses for the month, bills were $480,309, payroll $1,684,869, which brought our total expenses to $2,165,178. Revenue for the month of January was strong due to a couple of helping factors. Number one, special education reimbursement started up from the state of Nebraska, so that gave us $240,175 in revenue. And then we were reimbursed our ESSERS reimbursement from the first installment, the first ESSERS program, which was $747,738. So that was an additional $987,913 in revenue. That brought our total revenue to $2,642,257.06. So at this point in the budget cycle, we're 5 months expended into the budget cycle. That means at the end of February, next month when I'm giving this report to you, we'll be halfway through the budget cycle. At this point, currently we have underspent our budget 2.86% going into the halfway mark, so that's a good sign. We're in good, strong financial condition right now, and January was good for us from the standpoint of getting those extra revenue resources, and we had more revenue than expenditures.
Thank you. Any questions? Any discussion? All right, we will now take your votes on the consent agenda. And motion passes.
I think we have a few more members than what we actually have here tonight.
Yeah, it's
Passes 7-0. Now onto the outstanding recognition, but before we start with Employee of the Month, I would just like to recognize that we have a special guest here tonight, Mr. Kirk Penner, State Board of Education representative. Thank you, Kirk, for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And we will start with Employee of the Month, Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, I would ask Dawn Holthus to come up. She is going to help me present the award tonight. And then, Dave, would you come on down? So, Mr. Dave Trout is the February Employee of the Month. Dave serves everyone in the school district. His job is a very physically active job that forces him out in all types of weather and any time of the day. He drops everything to ensure all students have what they need. When he is eating lunch, if a student needs a special meal, or if food spilled that was already delivered, he drops everything and runs to the rescue. Additionally, he is a staple in preparing everything for our kitchens. He spends a lot of time in the outside freezer and finding food for the cafeteria to prepare for upcoming meals. He delivers breakfast items a few mornings, takes out the fresh fruit and vegetable snacks to the preschool every Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and organizes the 300 cases of food arriving with the commodity orders. Plus, he delivers backpacks every Wednesday, picks up the empty totes on Monday so that we can fill them again. Dave is also a member of the team that is very willing to help out no matter what time of day or day of the week. Dave is very knowledgeable, a jack of all trades. He is able to fix equipment, which saves money for the cafeteria department, which is fantastic. When the freezer stopped working on a Sunday in January, Dave quickly responded and helped to move all of the food to another location so we did not lose anything. He is always willing to help others out. I think that's the cool thing about Dave, is that I know when Don calls, Dave is there to help. So we truly appreciate that. Dave is also always a bright spot in the day. He always has a smile on his face and a positive attitude toward his job. Whenever he shows up down in our office, he's always smiling, delivering everything we need and taking care of all of us. So he works well with all of his colleagues and is such a great team player. You have to give this guy credit. He works with 13 women. That's kind of a feat. So we would like to congratulate Mr. Dave Trout, February Employee of the Month.
All right, thank you, Dave. Business friend of the month, Mr. Alexander and Dr. Nielsen.
Yes, and our business friend of the month could not be here this evening, so we are going to postpone that to next month.
And it looks like the same on our all-state football.
We were told to just go ahead with the all-state football because getting him here may be a challenge. He's been on the docket several times, so we were told to just go ahead and make the announcement, and we'll get him his certificate at a later time. Caleb Jones was selected for first team All-State in football this year. Caleb has also been selected to play in the Nebraska Shrine Bowl and is committed to play football for Iowa Western this coming fall. Caleb is a great teammate and school leader, and you can often see him leading the student section at home basketball games to support his schoolmates. This is where he is tonight, leading our student section at the basketball game. So that's why he couldn't be here, which makes perfect sense. That's where he should be. So congratulations to Caleb, as well as the other 16 athletes who signed letters of commitment to play. That's pretty good. Out of a class of 132 kids, 16 of them went on to sign, as well as our own student representative, Mr. Connor Hamilton. So congratulations to all those folks, and a special congratulations to Caleb tonight.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, Caleb. Board member recognition, Mr. Alexander.
Yes, and Dr. Nielsen's going to help me a little bit with this. Okay. That one here. So, last month, or last week, was Board Member Recognition Week in the state of Nebraska. And every year, the Nebraska Association of School Boards asks us to take some time to just talk about our board members and recognize them for their high pay that they get for doing this job, which is completely untrue. They get no pay, and sometimes it can be a lot of headache. So tonight, we didn't recognize them a week ago just simply because of the fact that we knew the board meeting was coming up in conjunction with what we do. Other ways to present them tonight. And it's also Valentine's Day, so it worked out really, really well. They didn't get flowers from their husbands, they got flowers from us. But we just wanted to say to our board members how much we appreciate what you do. We know a lot of times it's putting up with us because we may look like we don't know what we're doing, or it may be putting up with community members who feel like they know what's going on. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of volunteer work. It's a lot of work that has a very purposeful meaning. And sometimes that you don't get to see that come to fruition for quite some time. So we wanted you to know tonight that we enjoy working with you. We're grateful that you're here. We wanted you to know that we appreciate you for the things that you do, whether it be testifying against the bill, which we had 2 board members do last week, whether it be being part of the negotiations team, whether it be part of the construction team that's working on our building, or part of the team that's just out helping promote the good things that are happening in our schools. We do greatly appreciate everything you do. So on behalf of our staff, our students, Dr. Nielsen, myself, and our community, thank you for your volunteer service. I know at times it's challenging, but you are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys, we didn't let you fly.
We didn't get far.
You can let them on.
I will need to.
Okay.
All right, we will move on to the information portion of our meeting. First up is Mr. Hamilton with the student update.
Okay, so this week we've got parent-teacher conferences going on in our district. Our staff is ready and excited to talk with the parents in our district for this week. So starting with Stoddard and Lincoln, during this parent-teacher conference time, they've got a book fair going on, so they're really excited about that. And then second graders started swimming lessons with the YMCA. Mr. Jansen stated that they are more than grateful for their partnership with the Y, and they look forward to working with them more, so that's great for them. Moving on to Paddock, the houses are going great with 2 big get-togethers last week. Games were played, and it was a great opportunity for the kids to get to know each other. I think that house thing is a really good deal for those kids. And then this past week, there were houses that made Valentine's cards for nursing homes and their house sponsors, so that's great. And then 21 students were recognized for being responsible during the month of January. They received certificates and enjoyed root beer floats with Miss Hill and Mrs. Replogle. So moving on to the middle school, girls basketball, they won the Trailblazer Conference tournament and then ended the season with a victory over Malcolm. Congratulations on a great season to them. 8th graders have successfully completed their National Assessment of Education Progress Test. And then BHS counselors are coming down and talking to our 8th graders about registering for classes in the high school next year. So that's always a fun time for them to start thinking about high school. And then moving on to the high school, boys and girls basketball are both doing well. They both play Plattsmouth tonight as they begin to wrap up their regular season schedules. So swim and dive had a great conference meet. Boys were runner-ups and girls were the champions. They have state dive the 24th and swimming the 25th and 26th. So good luck to them. Our wrestling team qualified 8 wrestlers for the state tournament. State will happen this weekend. Good luck to them as well. Cheer and dance have been great at basketball games. They're working really hard. They both have state coming up as well. Leadership put on a successful paper airplane contest at our home basketball game. I'm a part of leadership, and it's always great to see businesses donating and giving what they can to help our cause. We benefited Make-A-Wish Foundation this year and raised over $1,200 for them, so that was great. And then moving on, spring sports are still in preparation for their individual seasons. I've seen track and soccer both doing conditioning around the school. With the baseball team, we've been hitting and throwing bullpens and stuff in preparations for our seasons, so we're looking forward to a fun spring. And then finally, students and faculty are both doing great in the first part of this second semester. Everyone is working hard and doing very well, so we're excited to finish off the semester here.
All right, thank you, Connor. Moving on to board reports, Committee of the Whole, Mrs. Martin.
The Board of Education Committee of the Whole was held on Wednesday, January 26th. Ryan Bruns from Dana Cole gave an overview of the 2020-2021 audit report. Then we talked a little bit about PLC leader training, which we've been able to do more of this year because of some additional funding. Dr. Nielsen presented the group with an overview and then introduced 3 staff members who each shared different aspects of the 7 standards for professional training. Shana Enns discussed the aspect of data and resources. Brenda Gronewald discussed the aspect of resources, and Aaron Hamilton talked about the implementation of instructional rounds and how it correlates to learning design standards. We heard a policy update on Article 5. Mr. Suter reviewed the BHS communication requirement and gave 2 options to review to meet this requirement. Dr. Nielsen updated the board about the collaboration with ESU 5 schools to fund and support instructional specialists, and we ended with a building project update from Mr. Alexander, and he said that they'd had a second meeting with the architects and added more teachers to help in the development of the new building. That ends my report.
Thank you, Doris. Stance report, Jason.
So Stance has been very active in current legislative issues this past couple months. We've met once face-to-face, and that included a tour of the Capitol in which we had a chance to meet and greet with senators and just introduce ourselves as the organization that does not hire a lobbyist. We do it ourselves as superintendents, and so that all went very well. Of most recent, we've had representatives from the Stance organization testify on behalf of LB 690, 960, and 1218, which are the teacher education bills that help reduce some of the barriers in getting people into education. We had testifiers and letters of support for LB 890 and 91, which were not successful. So those will have to go through probably an interim hearing this summer. And then we have testifiers lined up for LB 1158, and there's one more bill, I can't remember the exact number of it, that we're testifying against coming up later this week. In the coming weeks, as you know, it kind of spins off of the Stance organization and the legislation. Aaron and Janet both helped testify in opposition to LB 1146 that was in the Government and Relations Committee, and we anticipate in the coming weeks we'll have to testify again in opposition to LB 1143. Both of those bills are designed to eliminate joint public agencies for ESUs in schools, like what we are currently in the midst of using to help with the process of our schools. So we will obviously be testifying in opposition to those 2 bills forthcoming, but that's something that's not really Stance related. Stance has taken a position just to let Beatrice Public Schools handle that testification. So that's kind of what's been going on. We have another meeting this Thursday and continue to fight for appropriate policy for our kids in schools.
Good, thank you. Negotiations, Janet.
The Negotiations Committee has met with representatives from BEA on 5 occasions. We have not yet reached an agreement. A topic that has been discussed at length is non-medical time off without pay. A prior practice regarding non-medical dock time or time off without pay has been determined by our legal counsel to be an unfair labor practice. In order to work with our staff and remain within the confines of the law, the board has suggested many different options that have been rejected by either the BEA negotiators and or the BEA membership. We will be scheduling another meeting with the BEA representatives in an attempt to finalize negotiations. In the meantime, I would encourage certified staff to reach out to the BEA representatives to see what options have been suggested and work toward a resolution. Since we are currently still in negotiations, the board is unable to legally respond to individual teachers regarding negotiated issues.
Thank you, Janet.
If anybody has any questions, I would entertain those.
I guess having served on negotiations in the past, I'm getting just a little bit of, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I guess I'm going to just flat out ask, what, as board members that are negotiating, what are your thoughts on, do you feel this is going to go to mediation? From your report, that's the feeling that I'm getting, that the direction it's taken.
Do you know, I'm hopeful that we will be able to reach some type of resolution and that we can negotiate without doing mediation, but that would be the next step if we can't find a solution.
And when is this next, do you have any idea where we're at on the timeline as far as
Do you know, I believe that there was a deadline of February 8th that, you know, if we haven't settled, then they can say we need to go to mediation. We also have that opportunity. I believe it's the end of March that we would have to be settled, otherwise it automatically goes to mediation. So yeah, like I said, I'm hopeful that we will be able to reach a resolution. That's always healthier for the district and for our certified staff.
And we have had good discussions, long discussions. So we have been meeting, well, 5 times, and then each one of the meetings are an hour or 2 hours long. So there's been a lot going into it. Just haven't been able to come together yet.
Any other questions for Janet? Okay, thank you, Janet. Now's the time for public forum, citizens' requests to comment on items related to the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight? Okay, doesn't look like it, so we will move on to the action portion of the meeting. Committee appointments. So that is my agenda item. So thank you everybody for kind of giving me this month to go through the committee assignments and have conversations with everybody within the board. And so with that, I'll just kind of list off the committees and then the members that have agreed to be part of those, and then we can kind of move on and approve those from that point. So the first is the School, Community, and Staff Relations. Janet has agreed to continue to chair that, and then Aaron Chadwick and myself would be part of that committee. The Americanism Committee, Doris has agreed to continue to chair that committee, and then Lisa and Eric Book would be part of the Americanism Committee. Negotiations Committee, this would be for next fall, so for the 23-24 school year. Obviously, as we're continuing negotiations right now, will remain with Janet, Doris, and John, and then this would be for the next cycle. Janet has agreed to continue to chair it. Doris and then Lisa has agreed to join the committee. The legislative delegate will be myself, and then government relations network representative would be Doris. Does anybody have any questions, concerns about those committee assignments? Doris, can we have a motion to approve those, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the committee assignments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by John. Weaver votes. And that is approved 7-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the 2021 audit. Mr. Alexander.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the 2020-21 financial audit as presented at the January Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
Motion by Doris and a second by Aaron. Any discussion?
I would just add that, as you heard at the Committee of the Whole meeting, Dana F. Cole presented the district with an unmodified audit, which is the highest auditing opinion / grade that a public auditor can provide. So therefore, you can rest assured that all the checks and balances are complete and in place.
Any other questions, discussion on the audit? All right, can I have your votes, please? And that is approved 7-0 as well. All right, next item is consider discussion and approve suspending policy. Doris, can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 suspend the second reading of policy and to adopt the entire board policy series 3,000, 8,000, and 9,000 as presented, and to repeal and rescind all existing board policies in Article 3, Article 8, and Article 9, not specifically set forth and included in the newly adopted board policy book.
Second.
Thank you, and we have a second by John. Any questions, discussion?
Just for an update for our audience, as we've been continuing to update the policies in our district, The Article 3000 policies are primarily they reflect budgetary and fiscally related operations of the district and outline key aspects of fund setup and management, expenditure and revenue procedures, insurance and inventory requirements. The 8000 section are policies, basically the internal board policies that deal specifically with items related to the Board of Education. We talked about key areas of note that were included those in the committee of the whole meetings that we read. And then Article 9000 are policies that are bylaws of the board and are policies specifically related to the operations of the board. Key areas include the line of authority and authority of the Board of Education, link to the terms of services and officer roles on the board, and then bylaws, policies, and regulations of the board. And so all of those have been updated and are in current appropriate status with the law and ready to roll.
All right, thank you, Jason. Any other questions around this? If not, can I hear votes, please? Motion carries 7-0. The next item is graduation requirements. Mr. Alexander.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve option A of AR 5220.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Eric. And discussion.
Okay, so at this point, basically what you have in front of you is you have two options for the policies that we've talked about in the committee of the whole meeting, specifically regarding graduation requirements surrounding policy 5220. If you recall from those discussions, a majority of what we discussed revolved around the communications aspect, and we were given direction by the board. Mr. Suter was given direction by the board to come back with an option A and an option B. And option A is the communications that they are specifically laid out class by class of how the communications would work. Option B talks about embedding the communications requirements in the Beatrice High School Language Arts curriculum, utilizing the speaking and listening standards adopted from the State Department. So those standards are taught in BHS English courses and emphasized in 10th through 12th grades, wherein students will be required to demonstrate successful completion of each established communication skills. Basically, the motion that's been made adopts policy option A, and so what you guys have to discuss now is if there's any discussion that wants to be held about whether or not you like that option, and then you'll have to take a vote on it. If the vote fails, then the option would have to be amended, the motion would have to be amended to be option B. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Eric, and you guys can discuss if there's any further discussion as to which one you want to see, but we just need that guidance in order to get it into the policy manuals. We did also, as you recall, we discussed the 260 credits, but there was feeling across the board that 260 credits would remain the same, so that's still as is in the policy.
All right. Would anybody like to discuss these options?
I think the idea of embedding the communications requirement is unfair to students. I think to ask a student to give an oral presentation or to do a written public presentation with no instruction is not, it might be fine for the student who just has that natural ability, but that's not what school is about. School is about teaching people the skills needed to do those things. I also think embedding it will water it down. There won't be as much of it that takes place, and I think it's really important. So I would like to see us support option A.
I agree with Dora's valid points that she's made at the last committee of the whole and just now on how important communication is today more than ever with social media and texting, and people have gotten lazy with communication. I deal with it all the time in the workforce. It's being able to explain yourself people are having a hard time with, or being able to have the skills to have a simple conversation or a debate on current issues without being quick to insult people. I see it as the practice of civility that we are losing in our society. And I feel there's great merit in option B, but it feels as though with option B that we would be lowering our standards and I would not be in favor of that.
I agree with you, Eric. I originally liked embedding this because I felt that there were too many options for satisfying the communications credits, but I do like option A now, and I feel that it might be watered down if we went with option B. I had major flashbacks to high school speech this last week in trying to prepare a 3 or 5 minute speech to present in front of Senator Brewer. So speech class served me very well this last week, and I think we do see lots of issues in the workforce and society in general with people being unable to pick up a phone, make a phone call, speak in front of anyone, or compose something that is completely their own, that's been researched and discussed in front of whether it's their class or a public body like Doris mentioned. So I do like option A. And I'm very grateful for Mr. Suter's hard work on this. We asked a lot of him, so I appreciate that.
And I might be the only one that's maybe now in favor of option B. I guess I just feel with this day and age, a lot of things that we do is embedded within every class that our students are taking, whether it's science or even with the communications classes. Those students are expected to do some sort of presentation, whether it is standing up in front of the class or preparing a presentation. So I guess in my opinion, trying to add classes and trying to come up with what does that mean for our communications requirement. It seemed like when we were, having those discussions with Mr. Suter, not only last committee of the whole, but the previous one, we were trying to reach a little bit too much to come up with those classes that would meet that need. And in my opinion, I think if there's more direction within the curriculum and within our teachers to just have some form of communication requirement, within every class, which I think you can do from, English, math, science, all the way down to the vocal education classes within, shop class and so forth. Even with that type of class, there can be a presentation. So my opinion is I would be more in favor of option B. Any other comments? All right, we have a motion on the table for approving option A. Can I have your votes, please? Motion carries 6-1. Thank you. Security system for district office.
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the proposal from TrueView for installation of a security system at the district office located at 320 North 5th Street.
We have a motion and a second by Aaron. Discussion.
For a little background history on this, so we've been trying to get the security system here at the district office in place, and we've come to the point where we need to get a company in here and finish it up. We've worked with a company previously, but we just haven't been able to get there. So we are now looking. We've gotten proposals from Kidwell and TrueView. Kidwell is a more statewide based camera security system company. They're based out of Kearney, but they travel all the way across the state. TrueView is a local. It's a local company right here in Beatrice that functions, and they can do the same work, and also did it for about $9,000, $8,000 and change cheaper. So that's kind of the story behind that. But at the conclusion, we'll have cameras in every angle of the building. So if we do have an intruder of any sort, whether daytime or nighttime intruder, we'll be able to track them. And then on the outside of the building, we will also have enough camera and anglage to get our parking lot, but also across the street at the middle school. And these cameras do have the ability to zoom in and pick up facial recognition and license plate recognition. So from the standpoint of the coverage, we feel very strong that this gives us the ultimate coverage we need in the event that we have a situation that's less than favorable.
Anglage, did you
make that up?
I did.
We all knew what it meant.
Perfect.
Any other comments for Jason? All right, can I have your votes, please? And that is approved, 7-0. All right, moving on to administrator's report. Mr. Alexander, superintendent report.
Okay, just a couple of things to talk to you about. As you know, and I already gave a lot of the legislative update, but LB 890, which was the reformation of TIOSA, did get pulled last week due to difficulties with some of the senators seeing the value of it. I do anticipate that Senator Walz, who initiated that bill and brought it forth, will be willing to work on it in a legislative hearing over the summer and continue to revamp it to find a solution for the TIOSA formula that drives state aid and school finance, and also has a big impact on property taxes. So in my opinion, it's unfortunate that it didn't get more, it didn't go further in discussion, but it is what it is, and sometimes that process takes quite a while to get everything ironed out. So I would anticipate we'll see more of it. I've talked to you about LB 1146, LB 1143. We're waiting for the date for that to be initiated as or to be held in hearing at the Education Committee, and we'll be there to testify in opposition. LB 896, which puts a 2% cap on property valuation to access school property valuation on schools, failed. So that was a good thing in our opinion. Again, I think it erodes at the very fiber of local control that we all talked greatly about in the state of Nebraska. Quickly on the building, just a quick building project update. Before I get into the actual building project, as you all know, we had another water line break, so we're 3, 4, 6 this year. We're 50%. We've had 3 of 6 water lines break in the district. Todd Heido with Lamel Plumbing, who did the work for us, did say that we're not alone in that because of the dry conditions of the ground. There's a lot of heaving and things deep down and in. We did have a tree branch that was, or tree root that was wrapped around this pipe, which didn't help. So now the district office has lost the main line. They did get it fixed. We were without water for about 4 or 5 hours this morning.
Yes, we were.
Doris can attest to that, but we all made it through. In regards to the actual PK5 building project, we have had 2 more meetings with architects. Again, last week the selection committee met to narrow down. That's the selection committee that's made up of a compilation of our board members, the SNEA board members, and then we have 2 public patrons on that committee that met to go over all of the RFP proposals from the construction companies. And we went through that process. We have identified 4 that will be coming in this Wednesday to interview. So that's how that process works. And then from those 4, there will be 1 selected to begin a negotiations process with. So that happens this Wednesday. Again, something that happens behind the scenes that not a lot of people know, and it takes a considerable amount of time. We met from 12 o'clock, I believe, to about 3:30, 4 o'clock that day just to go through all those proposals in due diligence, and we appreciate everybody's help on that. Once we have the construction manager identified, we'll begin that negotiations process, get that in place, which will help